Get used to 2 and 3 p.m. Eastern time starts again next year. Charters are apparently valued at over $12 million apiece, and Denny Hamlin is channeling all the frustration and anger from last week at Martinsville into his championship effort this weekend at Phoenix. Hear what he said. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. The end of another glorious week. Championship weekend is upon us. The trucks tonight, Xfinity tomorrow night. The Cup Series will crown their champion Sunday afternoon. I'll be there tomorrow and Sunday for the Xfinity and Cup Series races. So if you're out at Phoenix Raceway and you see me, feel free to come say hi. But today, we're catching up on all the big news stories from this past week. It has been a very busy week. We've talked a lot about what happened at Martinsville. We've talked a lot about the upcoming championship weekend. And we'll talk a little bit more about championship weekend in a few moments, but we have some other stories to catch up on. First, Snider will stay in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's been replaced at RCR effectively by Sheldon Creed and, as of last week, Austin Hill joining the fray. But he will still race full-time for an RCR affiliate team. It was announced this week that Snider will race for Jordan Anderson Racing next season. Full-time gig, Snider will be behind the wheel of the number 31 car, a car that has proven to be fairly competitive this year with good drivers behind the wheel. We've seen guys like Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Josh Berry all run inside the top 10 in that 31 car. Snider will get the wheel next season. I'm excited for Snider, but I'm very excited for my boy Jordan Anderson. He's been on the show many times. We know Jordan loves to drive race cars or trucks, whatever he can get his hands on, but it is cool to see him more focused on the team ownership side of things. He's formed that alliance with RCR and now has a very competitive Xfinity Series program. I love to see what he's doing over there. I hope it continues to grow, and I think adding a full-time playoff caliber driver next season is a step in the right direction for him, so that's really exciting stuff. One of the biggest stories this week came from Adam Stern at Sports Business Journal. He reported a couple days ago that the next NASCAR charters that are sold are expected to go for at least $12 million, which is around a 100% increase from just last year when they went for closer to $6 million. Holy Toledo, that price is staggering. I mean, there's pros to it. Obviously, it means there's a lot of demand out there. There are a lot of investors, potential team owners who want a chance to compete in the NASCAR Cup Series. They're attracted by the next-gen car, but $12 million, that is a steep asking price. That is a significant barrier to entry. Of course, this is going to affect Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan as they're still seeking a second charter for 2311 next year. Reports this week suggest they are in talks with other teams to acquire that charter, but it sounds like they could be paying more than double what they paid for the 23 charter last season. So if you're a current team owner in the NASCAR Cup Series, if you already own a charter, you have to feel pretty good knowing that that number is going up significantly. Like Chip Ganassi, this was reported by Adam Stern, he said that being able to sell his charters on the way out of NASCAR team ownership has been a big help to him. Very much so. That adds to the asset base of the team. Without the charter system, all you're selling is a bunch of used cars, the building, and equipment. We've heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. say the exact same thing Chip Ganassi said right there. So yeah, if you're an existing team owner in the Cup Series, you gotta feel pretty good. You have a little added stability. If things go south and you do have to shut down your Cup Series team at some point in the future, you know you're gonna have, at least as of now, a very valuable asset that other people will spend a lot of money on. Will the price of charters continue to go up? Will it eventually one day start depreciating? That all remains to be seen, but for now at least, if you own a charter, you gotta be feeling good. If you're someone trying to buy a charter though, the price just goes up and up. That makes it very, very difficult. More big news this week. NASCAR revealed the networks and start times for every Cup Series race next season. There's some good news and maybe there's some potential bad news depending on where you fall on this issue. The good news, at least in my opinion, is that 19 of the 36 points-paying Cup Series races next year will be on either Big Fox or Big NBC, which means you do not have to subscribe to cable to be able to watch those races. That's more than half the schedule. It's been 12 or 13 years since we could last say that about the NASCAR schedule. So that's pretty exciting. Of course, Fox and FS1 have the first half of the schedule. NBC and USA Network have the second half, including the championship. That's the other big change. Of course, NBCSN is going away at the end of this calendar year, which means next season, races that would have typically been on NBCSN will now be on USA. That's also good news in my opinion. More households in the US have access to USA. That's included with more basic cable packages than NBCSN. So I think in many ways that's a good thing. Again, gives more people the opportunity to tune into NASCAR Cup Series races on a weekly basis. So I'm very excited about that. I'll also be really curious, especially that second half of the season, to see if NBC simulcasts races on Peacock like they've done at the end of this season. Like this weekend at Phoenix, the race will be on NBC, so anyone with a TV and an antenna basically can tune in and watch. But if you want to stream stream it, you can also stream on Peacock. I wonder if NBC will do that for more races next season, slowly but surely perhaps bridging that gap and incorporating streaming into their feed a little bit. I thought it was interesting. I was looking at reading an article about the TV ratings for the Major League Baseball World Series that just wrapped up. It was the second least viewed World Series in baseball history, ahead of only last year's World Series that took place during a pandemic. From what I read, they still averaged about 12 million viewers per game, but I thought it was interesting. Something like 11.75 million of those viewers watched on Big Fox, and only a couple 100,000 people watched from other sources, including streaming. So even baseball, the streaming number is tiny compared to who's watching on traditional TV. The thing some fans may be upset about are the start times for these races. The earliest race next season, I believe, will start at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I don't think there's any earlier start times listed. I hear some of y'all screaming about noon, but quite frankly, I don't mind the later start times for most races. I think there are a couple races on the schedule, a couple of dates that have traditionally been plagued by weather that I think an earlier start time would be beneficial, namely the Daytona 500. That's my big complaint with the start times, is that the Daytona 500 on Fox is scheduled for 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. If anyone knows Florida weather, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when rain is most likely to come in. So I wish we could get like a 1 p.m. Eastern start for the Daytona 500. I would be much happier with that. But aside from the Daytona 500, I don't have a big issue with later start times. It does help West Coast viewership. The data is out there. The Bristol Dirt Race has been moved to a night race, so I think that's a very good, very smart change. The only other complaint I really have with the start times is that so many of them seem to be after 3 p.m. Eastern, like 3:30 p.m. Eastern. That is pushing it a little late. I mean, we had a lot of 3 and 3:30 p.m. starts this year, and we also saw a couple races go up against darkness late in the day. So I'm not a huge fan of the 3:30 p.m. starts. I think 2:30 is where I would personally draw the line, but we'll see. If we can avoid the weather and get lucky this year, we could see a huge ratings boost. Between more races being on broadcast channels and the later start times helping up the West Coast, this could be a big year for NASCAR's TV ratings, perhaps even a swing upward in trajectory. But NBC and Fox, who are primarily responsible for setting these schedules, they're flying close to the sun. They're taking some risks here. Weather gets involved. You see more races get delayed or postponed due to weather, cut short due to darkness. I think they're playing with fire here. Hopefully it works out. On paper, I don't mind the later start times. I don't have a strong opinion either way. Like, I like 1 or noon Eastern starts as well, but I'm just saying I don't mind the 3:30 or 2:30 Eastern. Like, those are all fine. I just don't have a strong opinion. But I'm worried that for certain races like the Daytona 500, weather will become a factor. Darkness could become a factor at tracks without light. So just something to keep an eye on. Now that we've caught up on all the biggest stories from this past week, let's talk about Championship Weekend Media Day. That was yesterday, and Denny Hamlin provided all the highlights, all of the content. I'll be honest, Martin Truex Jr. didn't say anything interesting. Chase Elliott didn't say anything interesting. Larson said one thing that was a bit interesting. He talked about how last year for the championship race at Phoenix, when he was suspended, he was actually at Hendrick Motorsports and was sort of in on their operations, watching everything play out from their HQ when Chase Elliott went on to win, obviously the championship last year. So I thought that was interesting that Larson was so involved even then. But other than that interesting quote, it was all Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin was the show yesterday. So let's talk about some of the things he said. It's clear that Denny Hamlin is still very upset about what took place at Martinsville last week, getting spun out by Alex Bowman for the win in the closing laps, then getting booed loudly by the fans in the stands. Clearly, Denny Hamlin is still thinking about all that. But he was honest yesterday. Rather than trying to run away from everything and ignore it and suppress his emotions that he felt after Martinsville, his strategy is to channel all those emotions, to channel that frustration, that aggressive, that energy into his efforts this weekend at Phoenix to try and win his first ever Cup Series championship. And on paper, at least, I think this is a good idea. I mean, whatever Denny Hamlin's been doing up to this point has not worked. He's been to the championship 4 a few times, has failed to win the championship every single time. So mix things up, race emotional, be angry, be upset, be aggressive. Maybe that's the strategy that will finally get Hamlin over the top. One quote from yesterday, he said, "Thriving in chaos is what I've made my living at. When things get boring, honestly, is when the performance is mediocre." Well, things certainly aren't boring right now around Denny Hamlin, so we'll see if this new strategy works at Phoenix this weekend. But he said a lot else. He went on to further explain his anger, his frustrations with how Martinsville wrapped up. Here's a video clip from Bob Pockrass at Fox Sports.
Does fan popularity, I guess, matter to you?
No, because it doesn't correlate to common sense. We were the guys that were crashed, and we were booed. I'm confused with what's going on. It's just, obviously people were passionate about their driver, which that's okay. But honestly, it doesn't make any sense. It's just bitter fans from half a decade ago. They just cannot get over it.
So he's still going after the fans. He's still confused as to why he was booed last weekend. On this point, I actually support Denny Hamlin. I think Denny Hamlin's right. Like, NASCAR fans, they're extremely passionate, but NASCAR fans are loyal to a fault. Their favorite driver can't do anything wrong. I mean, I'm guilty of this. We all view our favorite driver's actions through rose-colored glasses, but sometimes it makes NASCAR fans look a bit silly because Denny Hamlin had every right to be upset at the end of last week's Martinsville race. He got dumped for the win. It was almost certainly an accident. I don't think Alex Bowman went into the corner planning to dump Denny Hamlin. It didn't sound like it, but he was intentionally racing aggressively with a guy on the playoff bubble and stepped over the edge and spun him out. So Denny Hamlin had every right to be upset. I thought what he did on the front stretch during Bowman's celebration did not cross any lines, but the fans of Martinsville booed him loudly anyways, and they booed him before he said that Alex Bowman was a hack and called him effing terrible and all that. They booed him before all that. Like, after Hamlin made some of those statements, okay, maybe you can boo him, but they booed him before all that. They booed him pretty simply for getting wrecked. So I actually think Denny Hamlin has a point right here. But let's go back to that clip that Bob Pockrass filmed at Media Day yesterday, and he said something very interesting towards the end.
There was controversy a few weeks ago, right? And eventually one of the drivers just said, I've had enough. I'm done taking your and I'm going to crash you. And I think that needs to probably happen a little bit more often to get some respect back. Obviously NASCAR is not going to police this stuff. It's the stuff that, is certainly, fuels, popularity. And so the drivers have to get back to self-policing, I think. And so that probably is going to have to come through the hard way.
Denny Hamlin is suggesting right there, he's not just suggesting, he's flat out saying it outright, that he believes we need more retaliation on track. He is basically condoning Kevin Harvick wrecking Chase Elliott, or trying to wreck Chase Elliott at the Charlotte Roval a few weeks ago. It kind of sounds like he's condoning what Matt Kenseth did to Joey Logano a few years back, or what Jeff Gordon did to Clint Boyer before them, which that should catch a lot of people's attention. He says at the end there, NASCAR has proven that they're not going to get in and enforce things. It's driver's code. Drivers have to enforce themselves. We had this debate last week. Remember, Matt Crafton, veteran of the Truck Series, said if drivers are being disrespectful, you just got to get out and punch them in the face, quite literally. Meanwhile, John Hunter Nemechek, a younger driver, basically called on NASCAR to take action when blatant incidents come up on track. So you heard what Matt Crafton versus John Hunter Nemechek thought of this debate. Denny Hamlin sounds like he's not really on either side, maybe closer to the Matt Crafton side in that he feels like drivers should enforce things themselves. But while Crafton was basically saying, hey, let's get into a fist fight, Denny Hamlin's saying, let's weaponize our race cars. I'm shocked to hear that come from a guy who now owns a race car, especially with the next gen being more expensive on a per car basis than the current Gen 6. I'm shocked to hear Denny Hamlin going out there and basically condoning retaliation. Maybe that is the right course of action. Maybe that will earn back respect with other drivers, but I'm skeptical. I think if anything, that will only divide the garage even further. Now, young drivers will have even more reasons to be upset with the old drivers. Old drivers will still feel like young drivers aren't getting the message, and it's going to be a whole mess. But I thought that was one of the most interesting comments from Denny Hamlin, from any driver, really all season long. Hamlin said that yesterday. So let me know what you think about those comments down below. One final quote from Denny Hamlin talking about that Alex Bowman incident. I just want to bring this up real quick. Nate Ryan posted this tweet. He says, more from Denny Hamlin, who says Alex Bowman has yet to talk to him about Martinsville, which he views as a lack of respect. Guys aren't men anymore in NASCAR. He also says, drivers in our series generally lack originality. I'm glad I can help on that front. Denny Hamlin certainly is original. He is providing all of the content right now, but interesting there. He's saying that Alex Bowman has not reached out to him, and he views that as a lack of respect. That sounds very much in line with what we've heard other veteran drivers say in recent years about when someone should reach out, when someone should apologize or have a discussion, And, I would defend Denny Hamlin on this issue as well if he hadn't gone on national television and called Alex Bowman a hack and, effing terrible. At that point, I don't think Alex Bowman needs to send you a text or give you a phone call. Now, for what it's worth, a few of y'all pointed this out, but Davey Siegel tweeted earlier in the week, Alex Bowman was on SiriusXM NASCAR radio a couple days ago, and apparently Bowman said, I went to text Hamlin earlier today, and one of the last things he said to me was, hey, sorry for ruining your day. I can't control my race car from him getting loose underneath me and spinning me out of Texas. The shoe has been on the other foot before. So it makes it sound like there, perhaps, that Bowman did text Denny Hamlin earlier in the week. Or, it does say that he just went to text. He said that he went to text Hamlin. Maybe he was going to text Hamlin and then saw the previous message from Texas and was like, nah, I don't need to text him. It's unclear from that quote, but it sounds like Bowman did text Hamlin, so I don't know who's telling the truth right there. Either way, I think it's interesting that Bowman quote, Denny Hamlin, when he made a mistake earlier this year and got into Bowman, he sent him a text. Granted, Bowman didn't call Hamlin a hack after that Texas race, but still, you'd think Bowman would would send a text to Hamlin after, almost ending his season by spinning him out. Maybe after the TV comments, Bowman figured it was not worthwhile. Either, I don't know who's telling the truth, but I thought that was an interesting quote as well. Maybe Bowman doesn't feel bad about it, and that's probably because of Hamlin's post-race comments. I think that's what we can conclude from all of this. Anyway, y'all, Denny Hamlin providing all the content. There's a lot of storylines going into Phoenix this weekend, especially the Cup race on Sunday. On paper, Larson and Hamlin are probably the favorites, at least all season long. Larson with all the wins, Hamlin has the best average finish. But watch out for Truex and Elliott. They've been quiet, but they could obviously swoop in and seal the deal here in just a couple of days. But that's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Even though the season is coming to a close, there is going to be no shortage of off-season content here on Out of the Groove, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it. And as always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. Truck Series tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. I still have to make my definitive picks and predictions for the Cup Series race on Sunday, so we'll talk about that here in the next day or so. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you later this weekend.